Uh, Look like no questions or clarification, then I will continue. First, let me share the screen. Like I explained before, what I'm going to do today is just to summarize what we discussed last time. And then today, mainly demand and supply, but the demand part will come. And so just to summarize what we discussed the last time, we mainly discussed these 10 principles. So they are also 2 weeks ago we start and complete this up to 7. The last week mainly 8 to 10. If you look at the principle number 1, this principle we have to understand because the limited resources and unlimited want we have to play with, and the economic decision we have to take carefully because of their limited resources and unlimited wants. So principle, so we it people pays trade-off. One try to do, the other one can't do. So basically, the first principle linked to the second one, that is about opportunity costing. When you, because of trade-off basically, and trade-off happen because of limited resources, unlimited wants. And the opportunity cost always happen, and the people have to take decision carefully to address the issues. And the third principle, what we learn, rational people think at margin when they take the decision, look at the marginal benefit and marginal cost and marginal concept. So that is the principle number 3. The principle number 4, we learn people respond to incentives. It can be utility, it can be disutility. That's how the principle respond. So the policymakers in that way have to take the decision carefully. If some decision, some policies, some strategies is work as a disincentives or disutility, the opposite thing happen. Some policies, some principle has to look at that way. But really, policymakers must know how it works, how society take it. Next 3 principles, what we discuss related to how people interact. There are 3 principles. The first one, what we discuss, trade can make everyone better. We learned this one, and here, but we'll study the trade always help to better off everyone through mainly specialization and when you do the trade, do particular product or service you specialize and they get advantage in the right. The principle number 6, what we learned and discussed last time, is the market are usually a good way to organize economic activity. Why we have to organize economic activity? Because the limited resources, unlimited. So then we have to decide what produce, how to produce, and several economic activity we have to carefully organize. When they answer this, when they take the decision, address this issue, if the market considers the usually good way. So the market decision ultimately, according to Adam Smith, is a produce the optimal result, what we call Pareto optimization. What I call is deliver economic nirvana for invisible hand. They are the, if you look at simple case, market and demand together, the market and supply together, demand decide the price. This price decision, it's happened like invisible. You don't know. But the point is that this optimize the social welfare, optimize the welfare of the society, optimize the GDP or economic production, the economy of any country. That is the reason. However, the market work alone is there are unavoidable things happen in the economy, like what we call market failure. The market failure happen due to different reasons. We discuss not in detail, just in give an introduction to each one. Now, for example, externality. So you can, I mean, when the market system works, the always externality there. Can be positive, it can be negative. So in case of externality, though we expected the Pareto optimal result through the market failure happened, and we don't get the optimal or economic nirvana point. Another reason what we did the market power, mainly monopoly. Another reason, the public goods. And the last one what we discussed, domestic information. Will address those market failure, government intervenes, and since government intervention, principle number 7 comes, the government can sometimes improve the market outcome. Well, market outcome ultimately generate the result with the market. Government can correct it and improve the result. That is the point, that is the beauty of the government. And unfortunately, what happened, government like, I mean, not the current or whatever the government, Sri Lankan case, 80, 75 years, it did not happen. Government rather improve the result, I think destroy the situation. So that is a sad story, country like Sri Lanka, where the government failure is a huge here. That result, not the optimal, not the economic environment. So they are the place, any country, any economy, invite the government intervention. So if government does not understand this invitation point, somewhere else try to touch him, the economy completely fails, society will fail. And the last principle, what we discussed, related to macro level, as a whole, the first one is the country's standard of living, depend on its ability to produce goods and services. That's what we discussed. If you produce more and more, you can improve your life standard. There also I discussed and we saw that a country like Sri Lanka, the opposite happened. Without additional production, try to increase the life standard. One way is getting donation, loan, whatever, and tax increase. Or maybe another one, print more and more money. Without increase the production, print more and more money. Also, that of course the link to the principle number 9, printing more money, it creates the inflation. So though try to increase life standard. Now here I want to emphasize here the principle number 8 linked to the standard of living and the ability to production. Country need a mechanism. Country need policies. Country strategies to improve productivity. In the exam, you may think how to do that. For example, like Sri Lanka, improve the productivity in order to improve the life standard of the people. What policies are strategies? Now, if you look at the picture, I suppose Sri Lanka also did like this side, the B side exactly. So we assume we try to enjoy whatever we have, without looking at future and sustainability. So that against the principle number 8, then what we have to do, so into the situation and get the result, get the fruit and enjoy the life. So that basic fundamental, if it doesn't work, I mean, if you don't work with those basic fundamentals, any country, any society, any individual will fail. Now, principle number 9, like I said, linked to the principle 8 also somehow, because the principle 8 say the life standard depend on the more production, not printing more money. What happened, printing more and more money, create inflation. So that is it. So that is principle number 9. Principle number 10 is linked to the inflation and the unemployment, the trade-off, short run trade-off. So those are the principle what we discussed last time. And summarize the 4 principles related to individual, next 3 principles related to interaction, and last 3 principles related to country as whole. So this is the exercise we did in the class, the group exercise. And so I gave marks also. And exam also, maybe the same or similar exercise I will give the exam also. With that, I'll maybe 2 minutes, I'll stop. If you have any, sorry, not 2, 3 minutes. Think of any comment, any questions, anything recall. After that, if you have any questions, you can ask me. At this point, stop for 3 minutes. Okay. Any question, any clarification? It looked like no question, no clarification. Then let me continue. Now, here, before I start the demand, to understanding the demand, I try to brief you to understand what is the difference between microeconomics concept and the macroeconomic concept using the whole system of economy. For that, let me share this one here. Now, you all know the economy in a society has, we can say, two parties. The one is, we can say, like a household, individual and household. The other one who have all the resources, like labor, land, capital, interest, or entrepreneurs, or whatever. All the resources bring to them. At the other side, the society may be the same person, be a household, and the other part, firms, the produce thing, firms. So these are the two parties in the any economy, any society. Now, what the household only have the resources, firm they don't have anything. What household do, these resources sell to firm. Labor, land, or whatever, all the resources sent to firms. Firms take the resources, including entrepreneurship, produce goods and services, and they don't keep it then back firm again. So that is the basic concept in the economy. Here, the goods and services cost. Goods and services. So typically, if you measure how much goods and services go this channel, you know you can calculate GDP. That's how. Now here, when household send their resources to firms, or maybe you can say sell, they earn money. That's what you call their income. It can be with the salaries, the wages, profit, rent, interest, or whatever way, come back to household. Household, they don't keep them, they use those money to buy, expend those to buy goods and services from firms. This is the expenditure done. Now you can see it's a nicely happened. Whatever the produce, whatever the sell, with the value addition, firm produce and send back to household. Another beautiful thing also happened here. This goes through a very wonderful manner. For example, goods and services.
Excuse me, sir. The line is breaking, sir.
Actually. So the last time also. Option.
So we can hear properly.
All right. Because the usually not happen. We'll see again. I will talk slowly also. Now, what I try to say, this demand and supply, or this good services buying and selling, go through a channel what we call good market. There, the demand and supply decide market outcome, which means the price and quantity. Like Adam Smith say, it's a individual, invisible happen. There, everybody better off. Why I say everybody better off? Maybe you say something against the price, for example. If you don't like, if you feel that the price is expensive, you can leave the market and you can buy something else. For example, if you feel that the cake is expensive, you can buy bread. And if you have several options in the market. So producer also say, if you, as a producer, you feel that that profit is not enough, you can do something else. At the same time, The other side also, what you call the fact market, they also go through a wonderful channel and their demand and supply. For example, labor demand and labor supply. They decide the labor wage rate. Now, if you don't like the particular sector, let's say the education sector, that salary, that wage, if you feel that not good enough, maybe you can find another sector and earn good salary. Or you can do your own businesses and earn good profit, good income. In such a way, you can change and you have so many options. So you can see this is the wonderful thing happen in an economy. Any economy, this happens. You see, in that case, let's say, household with the firm produce 2 million value something, the 2 million goods and services sent to household, to buy those amount, household expend 2 million, and how household get 2 million selling their resources. You see, this 2 million circulate among themselves and enjoy entire amount. Also, this is the system. Now, the macroeconomics mean the entire system we study, we call macroeconomics. For example, if you take the expenditure term, each year or maybe monthly, you cut and measure how much value goes, then what we call GDP, the expenditure. If we cut the channel somewhere here, goods and services, and measure the value, that is also GDP, the good. And income also you can do. So that measure. And the market also, this price, we say the general price, that is inflation. Here the factor market also like that, unemployment and those kind of things we do. The whole system study, and the firms also, firms demand. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply, those things apply macroeconomics. The microeconomics, what we do, we study the micro concept like the firm's behavior, individual behavior, how they behave the market, profit maximum, household behavior, the consumer's behavior, individual behavior. Each market separately take and behavior, demand and supply. Factor market, goods market is product, the micro component of the system. Study either microeconomics. Now look at, in that case, as a policy making point of view. I come to that point a little later. So here, the macro angle and the micro angle policy, how work. Before that, what happened, this system, unfortunately, what I use word is, because Sri Lanka, this happened gradually. Unfortunately, outside institution came here and intervened to the system. That unfortunate institution, country like Sri Lanka, what we call government. Now, government came and intervenes in the system. It happened when the government intends, government means money. The one key way, the conventional, traditional way, government take money from tax, from tax or something, some way. Yeah, that maybe government import to the household, and household 2 million now earn. They can't use 2 million because some money is to give to the government. Or maybe the government take also from firms, or maybe the market people expend, and the producers they buy our input, and the household they supply input. Several ways the government collect money from the system. Now, originally, like I mentioned, if the system earned per day 2 million, now maybe 1 million or 500,000 goes to the government. You can say, let's imagine 500,000 go, 50%. Now So live in the system, live in the society has only 1 million to enjoy. Though they hard work, they produce 2 million, but the 1 million goes to the government. Now it's fine, the government take that 1 million and return back to the system at least equal to 1 million or more than that. So the government revenue and inject the system back to the somewhere, say I greater than the system improve. But if it not happen, what we call the government failure and the economy and the society not develop. That is, the government become burden to the market system, burden to the society. You can see in that case, without government, maybe smoothly and going down. But like we learn one principle, government can intervention improve the result. So to improve the result, what we have to do, but the government inject the system more than the government take from it. So the policymakers has to look at that way, how now the government, when you talk about government, main thing come to mind, just in Sri Lankan case of course the collecting tax, but the policy intervention. The policy intervention, the government has to do to improve this entire system. Yeah, the government has key instrument, what we call policies. But the macro level policy or macroeconomic policy, those monetary and fiscal policy, they into the entire, including government, also they inject the system without looking at the proper cases damage. Now, for example, if your body something somewhere wrong, they inject some medicine to the entire system, kind of situation doing government. So, for example, this is the monetary policy, interest rate, printing money, is into the system. That way, the macroeconomics, we study the system and those macroeconomic policies inject, like fiscal policy, tax and the subsidy, those kind. Budget proportion. In that case, the problem here, for example, if the system works poorly, then it's go to end target 100% or closer to 100%. But here problem is within the system everywhere if we are leakage. Now country like Sri Lanka, especially developing countries, in the system everywhere leakages there. Because the system work with the informal system or illegal businesses there, or many ways not proper system, especially the informality. Then what happened? The government, for example, central bank, monetary policy, if inject somewhere, leakages everywhere happen at the end, you get very small, maybe 5%, 6% effectiveness. But there are learning microeconomics. That's what we are doing. We learn every individual part, individual system, individual behavior. Yeah, clearly we identify if there is leakages. Yeah, we definitely we can visualize. For example, is it household behavior? For example, is it the behavior of the producers, area production and producers? When you microeconomics, we study the producers, market structure, monopoly or oligopoly separately. We clearly can understand, or we clearly can analyze if there is leakages, then we can directly solve the problem there. Those micro policies the micro level, micro policies, microeconomics policies in that way. Country like with the more informality and developing countries more effective than macroeconomics policy. You can understand the reason because wherever system does not work properly. Why system does not work properly? Mainly the informality and illegal economic activities and all the things. There are no proper institutional setup and those things. It does not work properly. Those basically countries like developing countries. Sri Lanka is the serious case in that case. Because if you look at the informal sector, about 67%, and the illegal businesses about 15 to 17%. So properly work only 13-12%. Now, because of that, studying the micro component, microeconomics, give the micro solution more effective than the. So that's what the message I want to share with you. So if you have any questions again or clarification, you can ask. So here what I mainly try to show you how the microeconomics, macroeconomics thing happen, or we study the same thing looking at different ways. Macroeconomics looking at the whole picture, microeconomics small component. And that's the thing try to do. Anything? Okay, wonderful. Now, so this is the one I show you the system, and they try to explain how it works, why the microeconomics, the country, some different society, different economies, more important than the macroeconomic policy. So with that, let me come to the today main part and the demand and supply. So here only I discuss only demand. Before I start this one, since now I summarize and discuss main thing, I will give you again about 5 minutes. If you have any questions, any clarification to take it and think of, after 5 minutes you can ask. So I will break only 5 minutes just for not the relax, think of some question or clarification or comment. I'll stop for 5 minutes right now. 38 and we'll start 40. Yeah, 38. I say 2:45. We'll start. Any question or clarification? Nishal Kalwaraj.
No, so one thing. So in microeconomics, there are several microeconomic factors. No? So in the real world, sometimes those factors come together like demand, supply, and many other factors. But in economics, we are talking about a hypothetical situation, isn't it? Some factors are stable at a certain time and like that.
The last point I did not understand clearly because you said microeconomic certain factors and demand and supply. I don't know, these not all the factors, these are, yeah.
In the real world, all the economic factors come simultaneously, no? But in economics, so we cannot check all the factors at the same time. So that's at that point we think that some factors are constant and check how one factor is impact on the economy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think you tried to ask me when you look at the microeconomics concept and looking at the whole system microeconomics way, we have to think of the constant at this particular point, and maybe in that way you try to say the macroeconomics whole system we look at, no need to do that like that. So that is true in the what you learn the economics. If you look at the one point, we assume that the others think that's the textbook and theoretically, but the practically different way, the policy scenarios we can build up, take the policies. So that's what we usually do, changing those what happened and all we can incorporate and create the conceptualization, and we can do that skill the policymakers need. So when you talk about the, for example, demand and supply, the demand, law of demand, we assume that the other factors constant, but the policy level we can make it at different scenarios we can look in it. So that's what we do studies and we do that. You are right, if it's a textbook explanation purpose, though we take that, but it's not always case, right? That we take the particular take, understand, but all the scenario, different situation, we can do that. Slightly correct what you try to say. If you try to say the macro picture, looking at the whole system, no need to that. But that is also, if you look at the some interest rate or something changes, you have to assume, and with this happen. The mechanism, for example, is the money supply channel and the different channel. There are an assumption, different factors we say the construct. So banking channel, credit channel, those things also like that. But your point is, if you take the policy level, policymakers can take all together, maybe can identify, can study. There are models, there are ways, for example, input-output model. If you proper input-output model, one single thing, for example, if you drop a stone to the water, how water change, all the things we can input-output model, you can do that. There are ways to do.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Demand and supply. Here I start with the demand. Now, please understand, I try to start very simple thing and there give some kind of a new thing can improve the discussion. So, because I always try to take those concepts with the policy level and the practical level. Because of that, though I start from the beginning, A to Z, all the things, demand or supply, I don't teach you. And also the exam point of view, I don't ask what is the, for example, law of demand, what is demand, those things also I'm not going to ask you. The understanding I try to give you to bring with that understanding how to make analysis or policy discussion. Here, when you talk about demand, it's not like day-to-day what I demand is, I want this kind of demand. Here, two things has to be satisfied in order to something be a demand. One is you willing to, you like to take. And the other one is you able to, which means the affordability. Now, even you willing to take it, billions of them may be willing to take it. You imagine, you dream, but it's to be a demand in the economics term, the affordability also must be there. Otherwise, just willing is not become a demand, the concept what we learn in economics. Ability, in the sense able or affordability also not alone become a demand. These two combination of these two, we consider as a demand concept here. They are the, whether you have money to demand and you willing to buy that product. These two together we consider here demand. Now, when you demand something, is your demand and supply is affected with the different factors. Not like we have to consider different things. So they are the one of the key things when you look at the demand, which means the willingness to and able together, we talk about the quantity demand. And there are another concept we learn, law of demand. What does mean law of demand? It's basically discuss the relationship between the quantity and the price. There are other factors. The relationship between quantity of demand and the price we consider as the law of demand. A negative relationship between these two has the negative relationship that we consider as the law of demand. If it's a positive relationship, we don't consider law of demand. Law of demand means the relationship between quantity of demand and the price is negative, inverse relationship. But there, like someone asked before, it's a strong assumption there. This happen, all factors mean related to demand, they are remain constant. That is the thing. That's to understand that theory, we keep that assumption. But it doesn't mean that we release this assumption, adding those factors, we can't analyze. We can do that. So that's what we do, modeling and different scenarios, different way. But the basic theory to understand, we keep this assumption as the other thing remain constant. Other thing mean here, other factors. But we, for example, income. Those factors. We will learn those factors later. So because of this law of demand, always demand curve has a negative relationship and a negative slope. Negative relationship and negative slope. Actually, this means when the price increase, quantity demanded increase. Opposite happens. So that is the very basic thing what you look at to demand. With this fundamental, with this basic law work, this happen when the price increase, for example. Okay. Quantity demanded decrease. Now, this table I think the Helen's demand, like also you have demand, you will demand, and other person will also demand individually. This happen. Now I need from you in a paper, take this price and draw a demand curve. It come like that. This is quantity, this is price. You may get the demand curve like that. Please draw it and see whether you get the demand curve like that. Now you can see the price increase, quantity. So take 1 minute and draw. Now, another thing, this table, the price variable, quantity demand variable, we summarize and put into different form. One is the way put into the curve. Another way put into the curve, function like that. Now, using these figures, these values, we can create a function like what you demand function. Now, in this demand function, if you take here, to be equal 6 minus 2p, if you can exactly take this table. Now I need sorry. Now I need from you this demand function and a separate curve using this horizontal axis QD and the vertical P. When you draw a curve, you may get a curve like that. That's what we call the demand curve. Almost you get the same thing, but draw it in the demand function and the is demand curve. So please do it, otherwise later may you don't understand. Okay, hopefully you have done. The easy way to do, since the linear demand function here, linear demand curve, the 2 point only. One point you can say that if the price is 0, then you can find the quantity of demand that becomes 16. The other point you get the quantity of demand 0, how much the price become 8. So with this, you can join and you can find the vertical axis intercept here 8, here 16. So you can get the demand curve. You can get the demand. Now, what exactly did we had the demand function like that. So we draw demand curve, at this point, the value what you get, the answer is 8. This intercept, you get the 60. The point here, point 8, I mark as A. For us, very important, the point what we call maximum willingness to pay. The maximum willingness to pay, which means this particular, maximum willingness to pay. The particular consumer, for this maximum willingness to pay $8. Now look at in the market, suppose $3. Market price is $3. What happened now? He buy at $3, but he's still willingness to pay, which means his benefit in the market price is very low. This entire area, if you buy this amount, his total amount, he can use the value of this total amount, he can use to buy something else for savings or for any other purpose, which means his own welfare improvement. So that what we call consumer surplus. The particular consumer surplus becomes. So in the macro level, if you take all the consumers together, market, we get the consumer's welfare, consumer surplus. There we can part of the social welfare. Social welfare. So the point here, as a policymaker, you should be able to measure, get this maximum willingness to pay, using those results to be able to measure consumers' welfare, because it's a part of the social welfare. So the policymaker must try to improve social welfare. Before that, has to understand. So that's the one point.
So
Yeah.
consumers' welfare, what is the exact link to this one, sir?
What I mean?
So now we were discussing about a product, but then what you say, I couldn't get it properly, sir.
We
The
were
cons-
discussing demand curve, right?
And you said the price is three that we are willing to.
Let's say the market price is the $3, this particular good. But let's say you take the particular good, say this is a tea. You still willing to pay $8, but you really market you pay $3. You go with the $8 in the market. When you go, the price is today $3. Then with the $5 unit, you can save that money and use for other purpose. Which means this additional amount you can use for your own welfare. With concept using, we measure as a consumer surplus. Is a consumer surplus is the part of the social welfare. So I will come back to this one. I just introduced the understand the demand curve and the maximum willingness to pay and how to get the consumer welfare. How to get the consumer welfare, the difference between the willingness to pay and market price. So that is the beauty of the market, like I explained before. Though you willing to pay some amount, at the market is not like that. The market. So this is this kind of understanding linked to the policy discussion. So that's why I introduced the consumer surplus concept when I introduced demand. So when I introduced demand, that's why the reason you get confused, because my main purpose is to try to understand the demand and the law of demand. There, to go further to practical side, I introduced the consumer surplus concept. So just to understand here, later on we use this consumer surplus in concept for the analysis. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
To understand the demand is not necessary under the consumer surplus, but why we have to understand the demand curve and this thing and the policy level, there are so many things policymakers have to understand. So above the undergraduate level, master level, you have to understand, not the demand curve as the negative slope, this kind of thing. Beyond your, this is not your level. So there are inside stories I try to take. Now, what we try to do here to understand how to get the demand curve from a table and how to get the demand curve from a function. Same thing, from the table, you can directly convert to demand function also. If you are a big asset, you can use the econometrization and develop the demand function. And this kind of simple case you can take, for example, when the price is 0, you get the 16 here. The difference here, the -2, that's how you get the -2. So you get the demand function. Now, this is the curve you draw. That's what we call a demand curve. Now from individual to market demand understanding. Now, the market has so many people. Now, let's say this particular example, assume that only 2 people in the market, Helens and the Ken, buyers. Look at the Helens, but already did the demand. Whatever the Ken's demand here. Now, to get the value of the market demand, what you have to do, each price you add this value. Add this value and get market demand. You can see 16.8 is 20, like 21.8. Now I need from you 2 things. Complete this column, all the value, and draw the demand curve. That's the first thing. You will get it like that. And after that, take this value and find the market demand function. You get B, some value here, minus some value here, B. Taking that also, again, try to draw the demand curve. So 3 exercise, complete this one and 4, complete this column, draw the demand curve. Using this column, get the demand function. And using that one, so I'll give you, let's now 5 minutes. We will see after 5 minutes and do this exercise to understand how you get the demand curve, demand function, and those things. Okay. I hope you have done. So you get the values here, and you can draw the demand curve. From here, you can derive the demand function also, like QD equal when the price is 0, the value is 24. The minus, here the difference you can get here, that means 3. So this is the market demand function. From here also you can draw the demand curve. Now, another thing, carefully look at how you get market demand, adding the quantity at each price. Whatever the number of individual, the market, you can add and you can get it. Now with that, let's say you have a individual demand function. If you have individual demand function, like this case, Helen's one, you have QD equals 6 minus 2P. And we have the other person, Ken's one, QD equal 6 minus P. These are the individuals demand function. To individual demand function. Now what we did, get the market demand function, we add.
Excuse me, sir. Can you explain
Yeah.
how you arrived at that figures?
So if you remember, if you go back, I go back to the here. Now here you have the Kent's demand. If you convert these two into function, Helen's demand function, you get like this. 6 minus P, and the Kent's 8 minus P. Right. Now what we did is get market demand, just add these two. Like that, if you have the demand function, adding this demand function, you get market demand function. So what you do, add 16 plus 8, 24, minus 2 plus 1 is 3. This becomes the market demand function. So what we did is just to add these two, whatever n number of individual in the market, you get the demand function, you can add, you can get the market demand function. So that's how we do. Here, the exam point of view, be careful few things. Sometimes exam I give this is a normal demand function. There's another demand function we call inverse demand function. Between the price, some amount, let's say 8 minus 2Q. So this price is here. Those are we call inverse demand function. If individual inverse demand function given, for example, let's say 2 individual, P1 and P2. His demand is 10 minus, let's say, 3P. Adding this individual inverse demand function, you can't get market demand function. First, you have to convert them into normal demand function, and then add and get the market demand. So that understanding you need. So the exam, I may give like that. So here the picture, if you look at another way, individual demand, 3%. Here, adding you get the market demand. Okay. So that we learn. Another overall if we look at the law of demand, what we learn here, the relationship or inverse relationship between price and quantity. Other thing remain constant. That is very important. So we already talk about some other determinants or other factors in addition to price. So what we took is the law of demand. Demand is a function of P, price. But the demand depends not only the price, some other factor. The main key factor is one of the key factors is income. Price of other goods, substitute, complement. Some other factors also like population, advertisement. All together we can put into a demand function, we can get a demand function like that. If you get the demand function like that, if you keep this all the other factors constant, mean no change, relationship with these two, price and the quantity, we consider as low demand. So with this, the entire complete demand function. But when you come to the law of demand, we consider those remain constant, only change the price. That's why the market demand curve has a negative and inverse relations, negative relation. Now here, summarize what I discussed. Now let's say the price change. Because of that, the factor is constant, consumers move along the demand curve. Move along the demand price change. We assume other factors like income, price of other. Now the other factors change. For example, number of buyers change, increase or decrease. This entire demand curve shift depends on how ways the change, either up or down, entire demand curve shift. Now this is the number of buyers, similarly the income, same thing happen, and the price of other goods like that. Taste. Now you can see I can make a line here, break two parts, here the one, here the other part. The first part, what we call movement along the curve, which means change in quantity demand. Later part we call change in demand. I'm going to take that point now here. You see the change in demand, if the price constant, price not change, any other factor change, this happen. Entire demand. For example, let's say that if you want to demand Coca-Cola, so price of Pepsi change, the Coca-Cola demand increase or decrease. So that reflect to demand shift entirely. The other part, change in quantity demand, you move along the demand. That happens, the price change. For example, your good is the Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola price increase, you move B to A. Price decrease, not the curve change. The curve does not shift. So understand the difference between change in demand and the change in quantity demand. Again, the change in quantity demand that happen, price constant, any other factor change. Change in demand happen, other factors constant, then the price change. So that's simple. Now here, look at this table. You can see it again. Price is movement along, changing quantity demand. The factors change what happens. The entire demand curve shift. That means change in demand. These two concepts. Please learn. Now, one of the things is income. Now, when the income change, it depends on the nature of the good, which way the demand curve shift. For example, in case of inferior good, when the income increase, demand curve shift inward. Those understanding you need. In normal case, when the income increase, demand curve shift outward, which means the demand increase. So it depends. The exam I give a real world case, and you should be able to look at and analyze how. I will take some example later on. The first part, analyze and draw the curve, what happened, whether the move alone, shift the demand curve. So many example here, taking all the factors separately. I'm not going to discuss in detail. If someone you can look at and try to understand. So for example, substitute Pepsi and Cola chain, what happened? Some example, some question also here. So you see what happened to demand curve with the substitute price chain and the complement also chain. This is what happened to demand curve in value shift. It's another determinant. So all the here, I'm not going to take. This is the summary what I discussed again. Here the first part, change in quantity, which means move along the demand curve when the price change. This is the happen. Second part I discussed, change in demand, entire demand curve tip like that. When the other factors change, this happens. With these are the, again, each determinant separately. I take an example and explanation, but I skip those things because they're very simple. If you really don't understand, otherwise you call me, or maybe you can go through all the each and everything separately, take an example and some exercise there. So this slide. Yeah. Same thing, repeat. Now here I'll stop. This is the last point also. Now, look at this one. I already shared the slide, but otherwise, if you take a picture, do this exercise. So there you can understand whether what component help to move along the demand or off demand, what component help to understand the shift demand, mean the change in demand and change in quantity demand. So do this exercise. Next time when you start the class, I maybe randomly take few and look at. If you are not ready, I remove from the class, or maybe next time most probably you come to the university and do it. So then I directly can look at and I ask you to go out in the lecture room if you are not ready. So I'll stop this point. If you have any questions or clarification, you can ask me. And also this lecture, the live YouTube also, you can go to my YouTube and later on you can watch also if you want. And so I'll stop and everybody, thank you. And so if you have any questions, someone, you can wait. Otherwise, you can leave the meeting. I also, in 3 minutes, close the meeting. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.